The flickering light, the wheelchair stops, and a shadowy figure appears in the darkness at the end of the corridor. For a moment, there's nothing but the sound of the old television flickering in the background. Then we hear the wheelchair move again, this time closer. The camera begins to shake violently as if someone is trying to grab it. The image on screen flickers wildly. It's slow and deliberate. Then another knock. Though we can see that there are medical instruments lying around, abandoned and covered in dust. There's a gurney in the corner and a wheelchair next to the bed. The camera gets closer to the gurney. The camera goes through the doorway and the image on screen flickers once more. Walls are covered in graffiti and the only light comes from the faint glow of the city outside the window. And then another. The knocking stops. The camera is now shaking violently as if something is approaching quickly. The camera falls to the ground and the image goes black. Then we hear a voice. The camera stops moving. The image on screen is now completely black. And then we hear a scream. It's a woman's voice. She's screaming for help. Then the sound of footsteps. They're heavy and deliberate. And then the sound of the old television from earlier in the film. It's faintly in the background, but it's growing louder now. Then the whispering voices. They're closer now and they're getting louder. And then the sound of the wheelchair moving on its own. It's coming closer, fast. The camera shakes violently as the wheelchair approaches. Then everything goes black. It's raspy and weak. The only sound is the wind blowing through the tall grass. The camera moves slowly forward. As it does, the image on screen begins to fade away, and the sound of the old television in the background is replaced by a distorted, screeching noise. Casts long, the whispering voices become more distinct. We can hear snippets of their conversation, but it's unclear what they're saying. The camera is now moving quickly, almost as if it's being pulled forward by an unseen force. Dancing landing on the floor. The door hits the ground and the camera begins to move on its own. It moves slowly at first, then faster and faster. It skids to a stop and the image on screen flickers back to life. Shadows on the walls. As the camera slowly moves down a dark and eerie hallway, the only sound is the echo of whispers in the darkness. In the distance, at the end of the corridor, a wheelchair suddenly begins to move on its own, slowly at first, then faster and faster until it reaches the camera. As it gets closer, we can see that there's no one in the wheelchair. It's moving on its own, just as suddenly as it started. The camera continues to move forward slowly. As it moves, the whispering voices seem to get louder. The camera is now moving through the fog, and the image on screen begins to distort. The shadowy figure at the end of the hall seems to grow larger, taking on a more human shape. As the camera gets closer, the camera finally reaches the end of the hallway and stops. The shadowy figure is now directly in front of it, and the whispering voices have stopped. There's only silence now. Then we hear a loud bang as something heavy is dropped to the ground. The camera falls to the ground and the image goes black. After a few moments, we hear a knock on the door. The door creaks open and the camera rolls out. The camera is in a new location. It's in a dark and abandoned hospital room. As the camera moves through the room, as it does, the image on screen begins to distort. After a few moments, the camera rolls back. It moves slowly at first, then faster and faster until it reaches the door. The camera is now in a dark and deserted parking lot. Then suddenly,